and welcome to a very special episode of Perth City Talks. We are today at the Ibis Hotel in beautiful Perth City, ready to listen to an incredible yet controversial story coming out by James Parker. James Parker was a homosexual activist who fought for the rights of the lesbian, homosexual, transsexual and bisexual communities in the UK while he was at university. However, after a remarkable number of relationships, he began a spiritual and therapeutic journey to find himself as a married straight man with offspring. Thanks, James Parker, for giving us some minutes of your delicious dinner. How are you today? Did you expect that level of attendance tonight?
Well, I'm delighted to see so many people have come tonight. Clearly, whatever happens, sexuality is something that we all have and affects all of us. And I think it's a hot topic of debate. So I'm just really pleased to see that a number of people have come here, not just to listen to me, but I hope to actually to begin a very healthy discussion around this topic.
Why are you here tonight, Reecca? What did it draw you here tonight?
I'm here because, I'm a Christian and I'm here to support James. I know James personally. And he's got a story, that everyone should know about. And it's the story of many people who have experienced some sort of brokenness. And I just love him. I love his ministry. And I'm very, very passionate about seeing people set free from all sorts of issues in their lives. And I just loved how he just brings very difficult and very, very often very personal issues alive in a way that everybody can relate to them, because we all have experienced some issues in our lives. So that's why I'm here.
Do you know any other stories similar to James Parker's one?
Oh, yes, I do. In fact, I know lots of people who, like James, encountered Christ throughout their struggle. And, I know lots of people all over the world, and with very similar background. And the reality is that you form a bond often, because it's a very misunderstood issue, and it's a struggle really, and it's very misunderstood and very politicized. But to be honest with you, it's a human condition. It's a condition of the heart. It's a relational issue. So I've met a lot of people like James who have had the courage to share their struggle. And also, they've had the courage to admit to the fact that there is hope beyond the struggle. And it's something that is very hard to contextualize with you tonight, but it's not easy, and it's not very believable for many people to believe that there is hope beyond homosexuality, but there is.
And what are your expectations for tonight?
I haven't thought too much about it, to be honest, but I believe the man speaking is going to present his testimony, his life story, how he's come from a very dark and very dangerous lifestyle to love and family and children. With children, he is a great light and in this dark world and the difficult place it is for our children now. So thankfully, he has come to Christ and seen the truth and realised how important that is in his life.
Do you think that James Parker's story and his evolution through his homosexuality to become a straight man married with children can be controversial, the way he has gone to reach this point in his life?
Absolutely. I do believe that he is going to... We have to, as Christians, we believe we have to pray for his strength, because for what he is doing, speaking out the truth, people will hate hearing that, especially people who are still practicing the homosexual lifestyle. They find it very dangerous for someone to say that I was able to escape such a dangerous lifestyle. They'll not like what he is able to speak out, but because of Christ in him, he is very courageous. He has, I believe, he needs support, but he definitely needs a Christian's prayer so that he is able to speak the truth. And it's all about loving him and loving homosexual people too, but just not the lifestyle that they live, because it's damaging for our children.
Well, in 2007, you mentioned in BBC Radio that homosexuality can have its root in a dysfunctional childhood. Does it have a relation with your personal story?
Absolutely it does. And not just my own story, but as I've mentioned tonight during a talk I've given, I've literally walked with hundreds of different men and women who in some shape or form have been struggling with their sexuality. And what's happened for all of them is when they've really been willing to look a little deeper below the surface, many of them have found that in some way there've been some dysfunctionality, or in some cases excessive dysfunctionality within their childhood. And when they've been able to go back and to examine some of those issues, they have found to some degree resolution. Not always a lot, in some cases a lot, but whatever happens is they've found themselves having less anxiety and having a deeper understanding of themselves. That, in my opinion, is a good thing for anybody.
Why is it important for you as a politician being here tonight?
Look, I met James a few years ago when I was going to have a meeting with the new Catholic Archbishop of Perth, and I had the opportunity to meet James and hear his story then, and it's an incredible story. I'm sure that you and the viewers tonight would agree. It's unique, and so for me to be able to be here tonight is a great honour and a real privilege.
What impressed you the most out of the whole speech or the whole talk of James Packer?
I think that everyone has to be impressed by his brutal honesty. His story is authentic, he hides nothing, and in fact probably he convicts the rest of us to probably be more frank and more honest about our own journeys when we're interacting with others.
And what do you think that is the best teaching that James Packer has given us today?
I love how James paints it as it's not an us-them thing. Look, we're all broken people, we're all born sinners, and we all need help from each other and of course from the Lord. So it's not this antagonistic sort of argument of, oh, you're bigots and you're intolerant and that. Look, we're all in the same boat, and that's what I love about how James speaks, that we're all one and none of us are perfect. He's not perfect, I'm not perfect, but we need to work together and be honest. I love James's honesty, and that takes a lot of courage. Sure, it might have taken him some courage to come out the first time. I know that it took him even more courage to come out the second time and say, look, I want to follow the Lord. But it just takes such courage to be honest about where we're at and that we're not better than other people. We all need the Lord and we need each other. So I love it. We're all in the same boat in that sense.
And if you were to go now to the street to bring more people here into the room to listen to James Packer's speech, how would you convince them? What would you tell them why is it important for them to be here?
Oh, good question. I'd probably just say that, look, here is someone who's honest about his brokenness, but also honest about where people can find hope. And that's the good news, that we know that there's great hope, that a lot of people feel that they're trapped and that I'm just born this way and that I just need to suffer and life is suffering and this sort of... But James gives us real hope. He doesn't give us this idealistic, look, I can be perfect overnight, but it's a real hope that, look, even in my brokenness, I can walk on and he can share that hope and share that light with others. And I know he's got a real peace about himself. So he's really, found light and truth.
You went through a very intense journey, spiritual and therapeutic, and some people don't consider that those therapies to reconduct your sexuality, going from homosexual to heterosexual, can be proved as effective. What would you say to them?
Look, what I've been trying to say by being here tonight is that there are a lot of opinions out there. And sometimes it's very, very easy to turn around and say that things are black and white. But, none of our life stories are the same. All of us have a different life journey and different experiences in our life. And therefore, it's important that every single person is approached individually. I believed and was told categorically for years that nothing about me would ever change. I didn't even go in search of change. The fact of the matter is, change has taken place. And there's more change still to take place. Of course there is. I'm not the finished deal. So I'm constantly saying to young and old people alike, please, please, please don't close the door on your life and think that everything is sewn up and finite. It's not. There's always new opportunities tomorrow. The most important thing is that we give people the flexibility and the opportunity to be able to discover these avenues. That's my point here tonight.
You say that homosexuality, is not innate. And in 1990, the World Health Organization didn't classify homosexuality as an illness anymore. How would you define homosexuality today?
Well, I've come to learn and understand in my own journey, and this isn't just my journey, this is the journey of literally hundreds of people, even thousands across the world, whose stories haven't really been heard, is that we've come to understand that our same-sex attractions, we call it, or our homosexuality, is the accumulation of a number of things. I actually applaud the World Health Organization for saying that homosexuality is not an illness. I don't believe homosexuality is an illness either, and I think that's actually a very derogatory, or it could be a very harmful term. So I'm pleased that we're actually able to knock that term away. But that doesn't mean to say, therefore, that actually everybody is born gay. If people were born gay, then we have to ask ourselves this question: why are we seeing a rise, particularly of many men today, maybe in their 30s or 40s, who have been married, who've been heterosexual, and then suddenly say, oh, I've suddenly got this sort of same-sex urge within me, I think I must be gay. If they've always been gay, then surely, or they were born that way, then surely it's always been there. The same is true with identical twins. If people are genetically created gay, then clearly identical twins, genetically the same, are both gay. There are hundreds and hundreds of examples where this isn't the case. So I think that's why it's important that we continue the debate on this topic. It's not perhaps as clearly black and white as we sometimes think it is. But again, I applaud the World Health Organization for turning around and stating that this isn't an illness.
We're going to a break and we will be back soon with more interesting opinions on the incredible story of James Packer, the man who came out twice. Welcome back to Perth City Talks. We keep listening to the different opinions on James Packer's talk, Coming Out Twice. James Packer says that he could go from homosexuality to heterosexuality through a spiritual and therapeutic journey. What would you say to those scientists who believe that there are no scientific proof that those therapies can work to convert people to heterosexuality?
I think it's the power of Christ. So science cannot unravel the power that is in Christ. It's not a scientific thing at all. It's a supernatural thing to come to Christ. He opens your eyes to the truth, and you then know how much you are loved. It's nothing to do with the brain. It's to do with the spirit. So no matter how much science can say that you were or weren't that way, or you are not, or you can never be that way, it's not anything to do with what a human can say or their view. It's not even to do with what people say. It's to do with what God says and what the Bible says, and He is the same forever, yesterday, today, and forever, and He has so much love for every person that He created in their perfection, and so He knows His design. There is no you could compare homosexuality to any other person that maybe pedophilia, for example. People will say, well, I was born that way and I can't change. But we know that this is a mental illness, and it's the same with homosexuality.
The World Health Organization doesn't classify homosexuality as an illness anymore since the 17th of May in 1990. What would you say about that? How can you justify your statement?
If you look at the American psychiatric association in the United States. They did originally classify homosexuality as a mental illness. Now they're saying that the pedophiles or the pedophilic association, and now they're moving the goalpost. They're actually saying it's not an illness now, and they have their rights as well. Now they're saying bestiality is not an illness. It's now a way for certain people, and they have their rights as well. So could we believe what psychiatrists say, or do we believe the truth? So it's a matter of whether we follow what the world says and what humans say, experts, or whether we believe in Jesus Christ, who is our Saviour. So it's a very complex thing. It's hard to cover in a short amount of time, but history shows the damage that can be done by following that lifestyle.
I don't know if you know the work of Bruce Baggenmill, who is a Canadian biologist and has done a lot of research in homosexual behavior in the animal kingdom. And he throws the theory that, yeah, we can accept that those behaviors, they just don't have the purpose of reproduction. How can you explain homosexual behavior in the animal kingdom? Do you have any explanation for it?
Well, I'm not a biologist, and I don't know the case that you're talking about, so in some ways it'd be very, very difficult for me to comment on that. But I'd also say this is, I've heard from very good resources, I might say, that there's becoming a significant rise of homosexuality in China as a result of the fact that there are now more boys than there are girls. And what happens is in the place where there are fewer men, and some of these men who've been, fewer women, and where some of the men have been treated almost like a little princess by their mothers, they've taken on more of a female characteristic. And then there's other men who are desperately looking for women but can't find them. And so possibly because of some of the environments which we provide, that might give cause, and I mean might give cause, to a rise in homosexual behaviour that happens. I'm not an expert in this. What I am here tonight to talk about is what happens in human beings and the many, many people's experiences that I've come across and walked with. And all I'm saying is there's a greater debate that we need to have out there. I just hope that all sides of the argument are mature enough and willing enough to actually step in and to have that debate. I think it could be a cracking debate to have.
I'm going to turn now to a very touching moment in your life when you were 21 and you ran your pastor Todd to say for the very first time out loud that you were gay and you were seeking for some support which you didn't have before. And he truly embraced you with all your virtues and your biases, if you want to tell them like that. How do you feel today about the Pope Francis Bergoglio, who is showing very tolerant attitude for the very first time in church towards homosexuals?
Look, I love Pope Francis, and I love his attitude because, what I'm saying is really clear. I don't see people as homosexual or bisexual or heterosexual. I'm not saying that people don't have same-sex attractions or bisexual attractions or they're questioning their gender or whatever it is. I think what we need to do is to meet everybody's an individual. And I think Pope Francis is saying, look, let's get out of these dusty corridors and start engaging with people's lives. That's why the Christian faith is so important to me. Jesus left the temple and he went out to meet people in the midday sun. He went to people's houses. He let people, wash his feet with oil and women with their hair. That was unheard of. The church has got to wake up and it's got to go and meet people where they are. We all desire to be loved. We desire to belong. I'm delighted that Cardinal Bergoglio, or now Pope Francis, is actually setting a unique example. I just hope the church and others around are willing to step up to the mark and follow him.
Today, are you still in touch with those people you shared your life with while you had a homosexual lifestyle?
Yes, I'm still in touch with a number of different friends there. Some of them don't like my story, some of them find it very difficult. But you know what? My true friends, they love me. And they're my true friends, and I love them. And that's the most important thing. That for me is the bottom line.
I guess what really interests me is to take the label off the struggles that we face in life and just to admit to the fact that, you might struggle with, a certain addiction that I can't relate to, and yet there is a trigger there for you, just like there is a trigger for people who struggle with same-sex attraction. So I'm not really into the politics of labeling people. To me, as far as I'm concerned, we all, when we're triggered by something, we all react in different ways according to our background, and so that often causes us to lean towards certain things. For some people, it's an addiction to alcohol, to chocolate, you know. For some people, it's an addiction to someone that is not of the same sex. It could be a heterosexual relationship, but a really very deceiving, very toxic one as well. And for some people, it's same-sex attraction. So I think it's important for me. I'm very passionate about taking this label off and making it sound like it is a sin so much bigger than others, when it's not. The word sin comes from the Greek word, which it means missing the target. So, yeah, I'm really keen to let go of all those labels, just like James said.
Do you as well believe, like James Parker, that homosexuality has to do with the way that we are brought up more than with our genetically construction?
Absolutely. Like I was sharing with you before, I know many people who come from same-sex backgrounds who have chosen a life of submitting their sexuality to Christ, which can be very difficult. So I believe that homosexuality can be caused by many things, and one of the major triggers of homosexuality is sexual abuse. That is a very big one. I also know people who believe that they were born gay, and I'm not here to debate that. I'm just here to simply encourage people to question the relationship with God and to get to know Him as someone, just like, you know, we're talking right now, someone that they can talk to. So my passion is to encourage people just to talk to Him, just like you would talk to your neighbor, you would talk to your friend, and allow God, through His presence, to allow you to question some of the things maybe that you're into. Who am I to judge you, and who are you to judge me? We all come short.
Could you consider yourself a number 0 in the Kinsey scale, a heterosexual man with no interest whatsoever on males?
Because life is a journey, and because different circumstances mean different things en route, there are some times when I feel a 0. It just never crosses my mind. I've got a beautiful wife, it just doesn't cross my mind. But there are other times, and many men feel this, when they feel perhaps a little lesser or a bit threatened by other people. For me personally, and some others I know, it can actually give rise to me feeling that I want to compare myself to other men. And that can draw me to a place of being tempted to be same-sex attracted. And therefore I feel lesser in myself. But that's also a very healthy and helpful warning sign to me that actually I'm beginning to compare myself with others, when deep down my value is to be equal with everybody else. So I don't classify myself really in anywhere in the Kinsey scale. I definitely used to be a number 6, but I'm not categorically a 0, a 1 or a 2 or a 3, etc. But I tell you something, I'm definitely not a 6 or a 5.
That's what you mean with that sexuality can be liquid sometimes in life, taking your own words.
Sexuality, I think we're learning to discover, can be extremely fluid, particularly at different times in people's lives. There's an increasing number of young people today, I think particularly because of the effects of pornography and because they're being encouraged to try everything, where a lot of young people are saying, well, I'm bisexual. Well, I knew a very few people when I was younger who said they're bisexual. And what happened is they were trying a little bit and experimenting, but then later on in life, they're married and they're settled down, they've got kids, and they're just saying, oh, that was just a phase I went through. Now we've got a greater number of people who are saying that this is the way they are. Who knows where they'll be in years to come? That's why it's important that we as a society don't turn around and categorically label people, and that we also continue to make sure there are right environments where people can discuss this stuff. This is the murmurings of the heart, the deepest parts of who we are. And to some extent, all of us maybe in our lifestyle need to be able to have a conversation about this. And more than ever before, these conversations are really urgent.
Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, West TV.
Thanks for being with us, and we will be back next week with new interesting stories here in Perth City Talks. Same channel, same time.